Tonight, we leave the modern world behind. No thermostat glowing on the wall. No furnace humming in the basement. No insulated windows sealing you away from the weather. We're stepping into the North American wilderness of the early 1800s. Deep winter. The kind of winter that doesn't just chill you, it hunts you. The temperature is 40 degrees below zero. At this level of cold, physics behaves differently. When you inhale, the air doesn't feel cool, it feels solid. It hits the back of your throat like a mouthful of ice water, stinging your lungs with every breath. The snow beneath your boots doesn't crunch softly like it does at 30 degrees. At -40, snow is dry, brittle, crystalline. Your boots scream against it. A sharp, high-pitched creak that sounds less like snow and more like crushed glass. You're walking back from the barn, 50 yards to the cabin. In this weather, 50 yards feels like a mile. The wind finds every gap in your clothing. It presses against your coat, searches for a loose seam in your mittens, tries to slide down your collar. It is patient. It is relentless. And here's what most people don't understand about this moment in history. If your house was built the way modern houses are built, you would die tonight. Not probably. Not maybe. You would die. Modern homes are designed for comfort, not survival. They rely on constant energy, electricity, gas, oil, pumped in from somewhere else. Cut that supply, and a modern house at -40 becomes a refrigerator within hours. But the pioneers didn't have backup systems. They had design. They built structures that harvested heat, trapped it, and held it through the longest nights. They engineered survival using nothing but axes, mud, and a deep understanding of how warmth behaves. And that's what we're going to explore tonight. Not just how they stayed alive, but why their methods worked better than most of what we've built since. Now, through the dark trunks of the trees, you see it. A small glowing square floating in the blackness. It's not the harsh blue-white of an LED bulb. It's soft amber, a living color. It flickers and steadies like a heartbeat. The window of your cabin. You can smell wood smoke now, drifting on the wind. Hickory or oak, dense and earthy. To a pioneer, that scent didn't just mean fire. It meant life. You reach the cabin. You lift the iron latch. You push the heavy door inward. And you step across the threshold into a different world. The transition is instant. One moment you're in the killing cold, wind tearing at your face, lungs burning with every breath. The next moment, warmth. It hits you like a wall. Thick, heavy air that smells of wood smoke, rendered fat, and drying wool. You push the door shut behind you, leaning your shoulder into it to compress the seals, and drop the heavy wooden bar into place. The wind, which was screaming in your ears just seconds ago, becomes a distant moan. Harmless. Locked out. You stand there for a moment, shaking the dry snow from your shoulders, letting your eyes adjust to the dim amber light. The cabin is small. One room, maybe 16 feet by 20. By modern standards, it would barely qualify as a studio apartment. But right now, standing in this pocket of warmth while the wilderness rages outside, it feels like a fortress. Your wife is by the stove, stirring something in an iron pot. She looks up as you enter, nods, returns to her work. No dramatic greeting. You've done this 1,000 times. The nod says everything. You're home, you're safe. The night continues. The children are already in the loft. You can hear them up there, the soft rustling of corn husk mattresses, a whispered argument about nothing, then silence. They know the routine. When darkness falls and the temperature drops, you go up where the heat collects and you stay there. Something moves near your feet. A weight presses against your leg, and you feel the thump of a tail against your boot. The dog, a thick-coated shepherd mix, more wolf than pet. He followed you to the barn and back, and now he's reminding you that he exists and that the fire is warm and that perhaps you have something in your pocket for him. You reach down, scratch behind his ears. His fur is cold from the outside, but beneath it his body radiates heat like a small furnace. He'll sleep at the foot of the bed tonight, same as always. Another body, another source of warmth. This is the first thing modern people misunderstand about frontier life. We imagine isolation, a lone figure against the wilderness, rugged individualism. But survival wasn't solo. It was collective. Bodies shared heat. Tasks shared labor. The cabin wasn't shelter for one. It was a survival pod for an entire family unit, including the animals that helped keep everyone alive. You peel off your outer layers. The heavy wool coat, stiff with frost. The leather mittens, frozen hard as wood. The scarf crusted with ice crystals from your own breath. Each layer comes off and the warmth penetrates deeper. Your skin, which had gone numb and waxy, begins to tingle as blood flow returns. It almost hurts, that prickling sensation of tissue coming back to life. You hang the coat on a wooden peg near the door, but not too near the stove. Wet wool dried too fast will shrink and crack. You've learned this the hard way. Everything in this life is learned the hard way. Now you move toward the fire, toward the iron heart of the room, and you begin to understand what you've built here. From the outside, this cabin looks primitive. Rough logs stacked on top of each other, gaps stuffed with mud, a stone chimney leaking smoke into the night sky, a child's drawing of a house. But from the inside, you realize it's something else entirely. It's a machine. Every element, the thickness of the walls, the angle of the roof, the placement of the stove, the layers of fabric on the bed, has been calculated across generations of trial and error. People died figuring out what works. Their knowledge passed down not in books, but in habits, in traditions, in the way your father taught you to bank a fire and your mother taught you to layer quilts. You're standing inside centuries of accumulated survival wisdom. And tonight, that wisdom is going to keep your family alive while the trees outside crack and split from the cold. You pull a rough-hewn chair closer to the stove and sit down. The heat presses against your face, your chest, your hands. Not the thin, dry heat of a modern furnace blowing through vents. This is radiant heat. It travels in waves, like sunlight, warming not the air but the objects it touches. Your skin, your clothes, the chair beneath you. Your wife ladles something into a wooden bowl and hands it to you. Stew, salt pork and dried beans, simmered for hours. It's not gourmet, it's not pretty, but it's dense with fat and protein. Exactly what your body needs to fuel itself through a night this cold. You eat slowly, feeling the warmth spread from your stomach outward. The dog has settled near the stove, nose tucked under his tail, already half asleep. The children have gone quiet above. Your wife sits across from you, mending something by firelight, her hands moving automatically through a task she's done 10,000 times. This is the rhythm of the frontier night. Not dramatic, not desperate, just the quiet, practiced efficiency of people who know exactly what they're doing because their lives depend on it. You finish the stew, set the bowl aside, and look around the room that's keeping you alive. Time to understand how it works. You stand up from the chair and walk toward the nearest wall. In a modern house, you wouldn't think twice about the walls. They're just there, flat, smooth, painted some neutral color. You don't touch them, don't think about them, don't consider what they're made of or how they work. But here, in the amber glow of the stove, you place your hand flat against the timber. It's warm, not hot, not cold, warm, like touching something alive. This is the first secret of the pioneer cabin. The walls aren't just barriers. They are batteries. These logs are 12 inches thick. Hemlock, white pine, whatever grew tall and straight nearby. Each one was felled with an axe, dragged by horse or ox, and hewn square by hand. The marks of the broad axe are still visible, shallow scallops in the wood where the blade bit and lifted, hundreds of times per log. In your modern home tonight, the walls are probably 4 inches thick, maybe 6 if you're lucky. Inside those walls is a thin layer of fiberglass insulation. Effective, yes, but only if the power stays on. Only if the heating system keeps pumping. Cut the power to a modern house at -40, and within 2 hours the interior temperature starts dropping. By morning, the pipes are frozen. By the second day, the house is uninhabitable. But these logs don't need electricity. They don't need backup systems. They work on pure physics. Wood is made of millions of tiny cells. When the tree was alive, those cells transported water from roots to leaves. Now that the wood is dry, those cells are hollow, microscopic pockets of trapped air. And air is the greatest insulator in nature. When you stand here, surrounded by 12 inches of timber, you're not standing inside a wooden box. You're standing inside a shell of trapped, stationary air. The cold outside can't conduct through it. The heat inside can't escape. But there's more. During the day, when the weak winter sun struck the south-facing wall, these dark logs absorbed that energy. They drank it in slowly, the way a stone holds warmth long after the sun sets. Now, at night, as the temperature outside plummets toward 50 below, the logs are releasing that stored heat back into the room. This is thermal mass. The house itself is a heater. Your modern home doesn't do this. Modern walls are designed to be light, cheap, fast to build. They don't store heat. They just try to slow its escape. The moment your furnace stops running, the battle is lost. But this cabin is still fighting. It will still be fighting at 3 in the morning when the fire has burned down to coals. The walls will still be radiating warmth they collected 12 hours ago. You run your palm along the rough grain of the wood. You can feel the history in it. The years of growth, the seasons of rain and drought, all recorded in the density of the rings. But a log isn't a perfect shape. Trees taper. They twist. They grow knots where branches once emerged. Stack them up without care, and the gaps between them would let the wind whistle through. The cabin would be nothing but a cage. So your eyes drop to the horizontal lines between the timbers. The chinking. It looks like stripes of gray mortar running around the room. In the firelight, it almost seems decorative. A pattern of light and dark bands circling the walls. But this isn't decoration. This is the seal that keeps death outside. You crouch down to inspect it. This isn't cement. Cement would crack and crumble as the massive logs expand in summer and contract in winter. Within a year, you'd have gaps everywhere. This is something more flexible. Clay dug from the riverbank, mixed with sand for strength, bound together with animal hair or straw or dried moss. It moves with the house. It breathes with the seasons. Every autumn, before the first snow, you walk the perimeter of the cabin, inside and out. You're hunting for drafts. You wet your finger and run it slowly along the seams, waiting for that tiny kiss of cold air that means the seal has failed somewhere. If you find a crack, you don't ignore it. You fix it immediately. First, you jam dried moss deep into the crevice. Sphagnum moss works best because it resists rot. You pack it tight with a wooden wedge. Then you plaster fresh clay over the top, smoothing it with a wet hand until the wound is healed. This is the relationship between dweller and dwelling. The cabin protects you, but only if you protect it. Neglect the chinking for one season, and you'll pay for it all winter. The wind gusts outside, slamming against the north corner of the cabin. You hear it, a dull, heavy thud. In a tent, the walls would shake. In a modern frame house, the windows might rattle, the curtains might sway. Here, nothing moves. The mass of the timber absorbs the blow like a punch absorbed by a heavyweight fighter. The logs don't shudder. The air inside doesn't stir. The sound dies instantly, swallowed by the density of the wood. You feel something you rarely feel in modern buildings. Containment. You are inside. The world is outside. And the boundary between them is absolute. The wind can scream all night. The temperature can drop another 20 degrees. It doesn't matter. These walls are holding the line. You straighten up, looking at the striped pattern of timber and chinking that surrounds you. It's not beautiful by modern standards. It's rough, uneven, handmade. An architect who loves clean lines and glass expanses would call it primitive. But that architect's house would kill you tonight. This one is keeping you alive. You turn away from the walls and face the center of the room. If the logs are the skin of this house, what sits before you is its heart. The wood stove. It dominates the space in a way no modern appliance does. A hulking mass of black cast iron, maybe 3 feet tall, squatting on 4 stubby legs. It radiates heat so intense you can feel it pressing against your clothes from 6 feet away. In your modern home, heating is invisible. Vents hidden in floors. Thermostats glowing on walls. You adjust a number and walk away. The warmth just appears, sourceless, automatic. But here, heat has a body. Heat has a presence. Heat demands attention and respect and fuel. You pull your chair closer. The warmth that hits your face isn't like the dry, dusty air blown through modern ductwork. That kind of heat warms the air around you, and you warm yourself from the air. It's indirect, second-hand. This is different. This is radiant heat. It works like sunlight. Invisible waves of infrared energy travel through the air without warming it. They only become heat when they strike something solid. Your skin, your clothes, the chair beneath you. The warmth doesn't just touch you. It penetrates. It sinks through your wool shirt, through the flannel beneath, and settles deep into your muscles. You feel tension releasing that you didn't know you were holding. And the stove speaks. Listen. Tick, tick, tack. As the fire roars inside, the iron expands. As the draft shifts, it contracts. The metal is constantly settling, adjusting, breathing. It creates a rhythmic, metallic ticking that fills the silence of the cabin. This is the sound millions of ancestors fell asleep to. A mechanical lullaby that said the fire is alive. The heart is beating. You are safe for another night. You lean forward and open the small iron door at the front. For a moment, the light in the room transforms. The amber glow explodes into brilliant orange. The muffled roar of the fire rushes out into the room, suddenly loud, suddenly alive. Inside, you see the coal bed, a deep layer of red and gold, pulsing like something molten. This is the engine that drives everything. Without this, the cabin is just a wooden box waiting to freeze. You reach down to the wood box beside the stove. This isn't a random pile of lumber. It's a curated library of fuel, organized by purpose. You pick up a piece of split pine. Light in your hand, bark flaking off, sharp smell of resin. This is morning wood. It burns fast and hot, snapping and popping with energy. You use it to wake up a cold stove, to get flames roaring quickly when speed matters. You wouldn't use it now. Instead, you reach for a dense wedge of oak. It feels like a stone in your hand. The smell is completely different, earthy, almost like old leather. This is night wood. You toss it into the belly of the stove. It lands in the coal bed, sending sparks swirling up toward the flue. You close the iron door. The latch clicks. The roar is muffled again. Now the stove begins its slow work. That piece of oak won't just burn. It will smolder. It will release its energy gradually, hour by hour, keeping the iron hot until dawn. The fire doesn't need to blaze all night. It just needs to persist. Your great-grandchildren will have thermostats. They'll set a number and forget about it. They'll wake up to the same temperature they fell asleep to, never once thinking about where the warmth comes from. But you understand something they won't. Heat is not free. Heat is not automatic. Heat is a relationship between you and the fire, between the fire and the wood, between the wood and the forest where you spent 3 weeks last autumn cutting and splitting and stacking. Every log in that wood box represents hours of labor. Felling the tree, bucking it into rounds, splitting the rounds into wedges, stacking them to dry for a year before they're ready to burn. When you feed the stove, you're not just adding fuel. You're spending savings. You're withdrawing from an account you spent all summer building. This is why pioneers respected fire in ways modern people can't understand. Fire wasn't a utility you paid for monthly. Fire was life itself, earned through sweat, stored in wood piles, spent carefully through the long winter. The stove ticks and settles. The iron is turning a dull, dusty red near the firebox. You can feel the heat radiating outward in waves, pushing back against the cold that presses against the walls. In a modern home, you might have 5 or 6 heat sources, vents in every room, maybe a fireplace for decoration, electric heaters as backup. The warmth is distributed, diffused, everywhere and nowhere at once. Here, there is one source, just this iron box in the center of the room. Everything else, the walls, the quilts, the bodies in the loft, exists to capture and hold what this stove produces. If this fire dies, everything dies with it. You watch the iron glow in the darkness, listen to the soft ticking, feel the waves of heat washing over you. This is the heart of the house, and as long as it beats, you survive. But heat rises, and while you're warm here by the stove, the real reservoir, the place where the air is thickest and most comfortable, is floating above your head. You look toward the rough wooden ladder nailed to the wall. It leads up into the darkness of the rafters, to the sleeping loft. That's where the night ends. That's where the heat has gone to wait for you. You stand up, the chair scraping softly against the floorboards. Time to climb. You place your hand on the side rail of the ladder. The wood is smooth, polished by years of grip. But down here, near the floor, it feels cool to the touch. This is the strange geography of a log cabin. It's a single room, but it contains 2 different climates. As you stand at the bottom of the ladder, your boots are resting on the floorboards. Even with the stove roaring just a few feet away, you can feel a faint chill around your ankles. Cold air is heavy. It sinks. No matter how well you chink the walls, no matter how fiercely the fire burns, the floor belongs to winter. In a modern home, you might have heated floors, pipes carrying warm water beneath the tile, or electric coils radiating upward. The temperature is uniform from ankle to ceiling. But here, the cabin sits on 4 large cornerstones, raised a foot or 2 off the frozen ground. This keeps the sill logs from rotting in the mud. But it means that right now, beneath the planks you're standing on, the winter wind is blowing freely. There's nothing between you and -40 except a few inches of split timber. If you knelt down and placed your palm on the bare wood, it would feel like touching ice. This is the cold zone, the bottom 12 inches of the room where winter has a permanent foothold. But the pioneers didn't surrender to it. They adapted. You look down at the floor. Between you and the stove, the bare wood is covered with something heavy and colorful. Thick oval rugs, spiraling outward in braids of red, blue, gray, and brown. Rag rugs. In a world where nothing was wasted, every worn-out wool coat, every moth-eaten flannel shirt, every pair of trousers too torn to patch was saved. The fabric was cut into long strips, braided together 3 strands thick and coiled into dense mats. You step onto one now. The feeling is immediate. The bite of the cold floor vanishes, replaced by the soft, yielding texture of compressed wool. You're walking on an inch of insulation, an inch of trapped air between your feet and the frozen world below. These rugs create an archipelago of warmth across the floor. Islands you hop between, navigating the geography of the cabin without ever touching the ice. And they're not just functional. They're history. That gray stripe might be from a coat worn 3 winters ago. That blue braid might be from a dress brought from back east, carried 1,000 miles in a wagon chest. Every rug is a patchwork of memory, stitched together from the fabric of years. You follow the path of rugs toward the ladder, feeling the difference with every step. Wool, wood, wool, wood. Warm, cold, warm, cold. Now you climb. The ladder is rough but sturdy, each rung worn smooth in the center where countless feet have landed. You pull yourself upward, and with every step, something changes. At the second rung, your waist rises above the height of the stove door. The air loses its crisp edge. At the 4th rung, your head clears the level of the door frame. Suddenly, the air feels different. Thicker, heavier, warmer. At the top, you pull yourself over the edge of the loft floor and crawl onto the rough-hewn planks. You've entered the heat lake. In a modern home with high ceilings, the heat rises 15 feet into the air and pools uselessly above your head. You pay to warm empty space near the ceiling fan while your feet stay cold on the floor. But a pioneer cabin is built low. The loft sits maybe 7 feet above the main floor, tucked right up against the rafters. The roof above you is pitched steep, sharp enough to shed heavy snow before it collapses the structure. But that steep angle does something else. It acts like a funnel, catching every thermal wave rising from the stove below and trapping it here, against the ceiling. You lie back for a moment on the planks, just to feel it. It's easily 80 degrees up here, maybe warmer. Down on the main floor, you needed your coat. Up here, you could sleep in shirt sleeves. The air smells different in the loft, too. Down below, the dominant scents were wood smoke and stew. Up here, the air is dry, almost dusty, and smells intensely of the wood itself. The cedar shakes of the roof give off a sharp, spicy scent. Bundles of dried sage and thyme hang from the rafters, curing in the rising heat, filling the darkness with a savory perfume. It's dark up here. The glow of the stove is blocked by the loft floor, filtered down to just a faint orange pulse bleeding through the cracks between the planks. It feels hidden, secret, safe. This is the true advantage the pioneer had over the modern homeowner. We build big. We build tall. We fill our homes with empty space that costs money to heat and serves no purpose. The pioneers built small. They built tight. They let physics do the work, heat rising naturally into the space where they slept, pooling around their bodies instead of vanishing into vaulted ceilings. You crawl across the loft toward the bed. In the darkness, it looks like a shapeless mound, a heap of fabric piled against the far wall. But as you reach out to touch it, you realize this is the final layer of defense. The walls trap the heat. The stove creates it. The loft concentrates it. But the bed? The bed holds it against your body all night long. You reach out and press your hand into the mattress. It crunches. This isn't the silent, spongy give of a modern memory foam mattress. This is loud. It rustles and shifts beneath your palm with a dry, papery sound. This is a straw tick, a massive bag sewn from heavy striped cotton, stuffed with whatever was available. In autumn, it might be fresh wheat straw, golden and sweet smelling. Now, deep in winter, it's likely dried corn husks. Springy, durable, and surprisingly comfortable. But noisy. Every time you move, the bed speaks. Shuck, shuck, rustle. It's a sound that defined frontier nights. A reminder that you're sleeping on the harvest, literally resting on the fruits of your labor from the summer before. You sit down on the edge of the tick. It doesn't collapse. It holds you up, firm and fibrous, like sitting on a tightly packed bale of hay. But the mattress is just the foundation. The real engineering is what lies on top. You reach for the covers, and the first thing you notice is the weight. Modern bedding is designed to be light. We buy down comforters that promise warmth without weight. We want to feel like we're sleeping under clouds. The pioneers wanted to feel like they were sleeping under shields. You pull back the top layer, and the mass of it surprises you even though you've done this 1,000 times. This is a patchwork quilt. It's beautiful, yes, a mosaic of red, blue, gray, and brown fabric scraps saved from old shirts, worn-out dresses, outgrown children's clothes. A visual history of the family sewn together, square by square. But the beauty is secondary to the density. Inside these layers is wool batting, raw wool from sheep, carded into thick sheets and sandwiched between the fabric. Wool is heavy, and when you stack 3 or 4 of these quilts on a bed, the effect is almost crushing. You slide your legs under the pile. The quilts don't just drape over you. They press down. They conform to every curve of your body, sealing off every gap where cold air might creep in. It feels like a heavy hand pushing firmly against your chest and legs. In a modern bed, you shift and turn freely. The light comforter floats with you, barely noticeable. Here, movement takes effort. The quilts pin you in place. To a modern sleeper, this might sound uncomfortable, claustrophobic even, but there's something else happening. That weight triggers a response deep in your nervous system. It's called pressure therapy today, the same principle behind weighted blankets that sell for hundreds of dollars. The heaviness tells your body that you're safe, contained, held. Your heart rate slows. Your muscles release tension. Your breathing deepens. You're not just warm, you're anchored. The flannel sheets beneath the quilts are soft against your skin, a stark contrast to the rough wool above. Flannel is cotton that's been brushed, raising the fibers to create a fuzzy texture. Those raised fibers trap air against your skin, creating a microlayer of insulation. Modern sheets are smooth and cool. They feel crisp when you first slide in. Flannel feels warm immediately. There's no shock, no adjustment period. The fabric welcomes you. But even with the stove roaring below, even with the heat lake in the rafters, even with the fortress of quilts pressing down, there's still one part of you that's vulnerable. Your feet. The bottom of the bed is furthest from your core. It's the cold zone of the mattress, the place where heat goes to die. If you slide your feet down there right now, the sheets will feel like ice. You might lie awake for an hour, shivering, waiting for your own body heat to warm that space. But you don't wait. You brought something with you. Before you climbed the ladder, you grabbed it from the top of the stove. A flat rectangle of gray stone, wrapped thick in flannel. Soapstone. It looks unremarkable. Just a slab of rock, maybe an inch thick, with a wire handle twisted around it. But this stone has been sitting on the firebox for the past 2 hours, drinking in heat. Soapstone is dense and non-porous. It absorbs heat slowly and releases it even slower. Unlike a brass pan filled with coals, which burns hot and fades fast, this stone will radiate warmth for hours. You lift the heavy pile of quilts at the foot of the bed and slide the wrapped stone into the darkness between the sheets. You let the quilts fall back into place. Now you strip off your outer clothes, trousers, heavy shirt, and slide into the bed in your long flannel nightshirt. The sheets are cool against your shoulders at first, but then you stretch your legs out, pushing your feet down into the darkness. Your toes make contact. The heat radiating from that stone is startling. Not lukewarm, hot, almost too hot. The warmth floods through the soles of your feet, up your ankles, into your calves. Your muscles, clenched tight all day against the cold, suddenly unlock. You curl slightly, drawing your knees closer to the warmth, creating a tent of heat beneath the heavy wool. You are now in the cocoon. The stove below, the logs around, the heat lake above, the quilts pressing down, the stone guarding your feet. You have engineered a tropical climate in the heart of a frozen wilderness. But there's one more source of heat. The most important one. It's already inside you, moving. You lie there, the heavy wool pressing you down, the hot stone radiating against your feet. But there's one final source of heat that the pioneers understood better than we do today. We think of warmth as something external. A fire, a radiator, a blanket, something outside ourselves that we move toward or wrap around our bodies. But the most important heater isn't in the room. It's in your chest. Your body is a furnace. It burns fuel and produces heat, about the same output as a 100-watt light bulb, running constantly every hour of every day. But a furnace without fuel is useless. In the modern world, we eat light. We count calories. We skip dinner because we're trying to lose weight or because we got busy and forgot. But out here, when the temperature drops to 40 below, skipping dinner could kill you. You think back to the meal you ate an hour ago, sitting by the stove. It wasn't a salad. It wasn't a light snack. It was a bowl of stew. Salt pork simmered for hours with dried beans, carrots from the root cellar, a chunk of venison from the deer your neighbor shot last month and shared with the valley. The stew was thick, almost solid, greasy with rendered fat that coated your lips and left a film on the roof of your mouth. To a modern palate, it might seem too rich, too heavy, the kind of meal a diet app would flag in angry red numbers. But out here, that fat is survival. Digestion produces heat. It's called thermogenesis. The metabolic process of breaking down food generates warmth from the inside out. The heavier the meal, the longer the burn. By eating a high-fat supper right before bed, you've essentially stoked your internal boiler. Your metabolism will keep pumping heat into your bloodstream for the next 6 hours, warming you from the core while you sleep. This is why frontier meals look so different from modern ones. We optimize for lightness, for speed, for convenience. Grab something quick, eat it standing up, get back to whatever we were doing. The pioneers optimized for fuel. Dense, slow-burning calories that would carry them through 16 hours of cold between supper and breakfast. Moving. You listen to the quiet of the loft. In a modern home, we crave privacy. We build separate bedrooms for every child, separate wings for parents, hallways and doors to buffer us from one another. We equate space with luxury. But on the frontier, space is the enemy. Every cubic foot of empty air is a cubic foot of cold you have to heat. So in this cabin, the sleeping arrangements are dense. You're not alone in this bed. On one side, your wife is already asleep. You can hear her breathing, slow, steady, deep. She was up before dawn this morning, same as every morning. By the time you came in from the barn, she'd already fed the children, mended a tear in your coat, and started tomorrow's bread rising by the stove. She earned this sleep. On the other side, pressed against the wall, 2 of the children are curled together like puppies. The younger one has her thumb near her mouth, a habit she hasn't quite broken. The older one has thrown an arm over his sister, whether for warmth or protection, you can't tell. The baby is in a cradle near your wife's side of the bed, close enough that she can reach out in the darkness without fully waking. This is how humans slept for most of history. Not in isolated pods of private space, but together. Piled close, sharing heat, sharing breath, sharing the vulnerability of unconsciousness. A single human body generates about as much warmth as a 100-watt light bulb. Alone, that heat dissipates into the air and is lost. But pack 4 or 5 bodies under a heavy quilt, and you create a furnace. You can feel it now. The warmth isn't just coming from the soapstone at your feet or the stove below. It's coming from beside you, from the small bodies pressed against the mattress, from the rhythm of breathing that fills the darkness. It triggers something deep in your brain, something older than language, the safety of the pack, the knowledge that you don't have to watch the darkness alone. Modern people pay money to simulate this feeling. Weighted blankets, white noise machines, sleep apps that play recordings of other people breathing. But here, it's not a simulation. It's real. The weight is real. The breathing is real. The warmth is real. And then there's the other body heat source. Something shifts at the foot of the bed. A weight adjusts, sighs, and settles back down. It's the dog. He climbed up the ladder after you, the way he does every night. Now he's curled on top of the quilts at the foot of the bed, nose tucked under his tail, already deep in whatever dreams dogs have. In a modern home, we might banish the dog to a crate or a bed on the floor. Hygiene, we'd say, boundaries. But out here, the dog isn't a pet. He's a survival tool. His body temperature runs higher than yours, about 101 degrees. He's a living radiator, pumping heat into the bed from the outside. He also serves as a draft blocker, his body plugging the gap where the quilts meet the mattress, sealing off the last avenue where cold might creep in. And he's a sentry. If something moved outside, a wolf, a bear, a stranger approaching through the snow, his ears would prick up before you heard anything. His growl would wake you faster than any alarm. But right now, he's dead asleep. His heavy, relaxed weight tells you everything is safe. The perimeter is secure. Nothing is moving in the darkness that shouldn't be. So you lie there, suspended in this web of warmth. Your wife on one side, the children on the other, the dog at your feet, the quilts pressing down from above, the stone radiating from below. You are surrounded by life. In the modern world, we've engineered this away. We've built homes where every person has their own climate-controlled space, where you can live with a family and go days without touching anyone. We call this progress. But on nights like this, when the temperature outside is cold enough to kill you in an hour, you understand something different. Warmth isn't just physical, it's social. The bodies around you aren't just generating heat, they're generating safety, comfort, the ancient assurance that you are not alone in the darkness. If you're listening to this right now, wherever you are, maybe let me know in the comments. What time is it where you are? Are you in bed? On a couch? Driving through the night? I always find it strange and wonderful that the same words can reach someone in Tokyo at dawn and someone in London at midnight and someone in Texas at 3 a.m., all drifting towards sleep together. We're not in the same room, but in some small way, we're sharing warmth too. Now the loft is fully quiet. The children have stopped shifting. Your wife's breathing has deepened into the slow rhythm of true sleep. Even the dog has gone still. The only light comes from below, that faint orange pulse bleeding through the cracks in the floorboards. But there's one last ritual before the darkness becomes complete. On the small wooden shelf beside the bed, a single flame is still burning. You turn your head toward the small wooden shelf nailed to the wall beside the bed. A single flame flickers there, dancing in the faint draft that moves through the loft. This isn't a candle from a store, poured into a glass jar and scented with vanilla or lavender. This is a tallow dip, a simple cotton wick coated in layers of rendered animal fat. Beef or mutton, saved from butchering, melted down and hardened into a rough, yellowish cylinder. It sputters as it burns. Hiss, pop, A thin ribbon of black smoke curls up from the tip, carrying a smell that would seem strange in a modern bedroom. Greasy, meaty, raw. It's the smell of the farm, not the factory. But the light it casts is beautiful. Because the cabin logs are hewn by hand, the walls aren't smooth. They're a landscape of ridges and tool marks, shallow scallops where the broad axe bit into the wood 1,000 times. As the flame flickers, shadows dance across these surfaces. Long shapes that stretch and contract, jump and settle, breathing with every movement of the air. In a modern home, we banish shadows. Overhead lights, lamps in every corner, screens glowing through the night. We want even illumination, no dark corners, no mystery. But here, the candle creates a small island of light surrounded by deep pools of darkness. The corners of the loft are invisible. The rafters above fade into black. The only things that exist are the things the flame touches, the edge of the quilt, the curve of your wife's shoulder, the gleam of the dog's eye as he watches you from the foot of the bed. It's intimate in a way electric light never is. The darkness isn't frightening. It's restful. It tells your brain that the day is over, that nothing more is required of you, that the only thing left to do is sleep. But light is fuel, and fuel is precious. You cannot burn the candle while you sleep. Every hour it burns is tallow you'll have to render again next slaughter season. And besides, an unattended flame in a house made of timber and stuffed with straw is a death sentence waiting to happen. So the candle must be extinguished. You don't blow it out. Blowing sends sparks flying, embers drifting, landing on wool or cotton or the dry corn husks of the mattress. One spark in the wrong place and you wake to flames instead of morning. Instead, you reach out with your thumb and forefinger. You bring them together over the flame, pinching the wick. Snuff. The light vanishes instantly. For a moment, the darkness feels absolute. Heavy. Your eyes strain against it, searching for something to hold on to. Then, slowly, shapes begin to emerge. The faint orange glow from below, the stove still breathing through its vents, still radiating heat into the room. It's not enough to see by, but it's enough to know the fire is alive. The pale rectangle of the window across the room, frost-covered glass catching the faint light of stars or moon, glowing silver blue against the darkness. The outline of bodies beside you, your wife, the children, the dog. Just shapes now, but shapes you know so well you could draw them from memory. The smell of the extinguished wick hangs in the air. Sharp, acrid, the scent of hot cotton and cooling fat. It's the smell that signals the end of the day. The final punctuation mark before sleep. You pull your hand back under the quilts, tucking it against the warmth of your chest. The visual world has been turned off. There's nothing left to see, nothing left to do, nothing left to decide. In a modern bedroom, this would be the moment you'd reach for your phone. Check the time. Scroll through something. Let the blue light push sleep back another hour. But there's no phone here. No screen. No glowing numbers telling you how many hours until the alarm. There's only darkness and warmth and the sound of breathing beside you. Your eyes close, not because you're forcing them shut, but because there's nothing left for them to do. The boundary between the room and your own mind begins to dissolve. You're not asleep yet, but you're not fully awake either. You're floating in that liminal space between, where thoughts drift without direction and the body grows heavy against the mattress. The quilts press down. The stone radiates warmth. The dog sighs and shifts at your feet. And then the sounds begin. In the darkness, with your eyes closed and your body still, your ears take over. The cabin has a voice. The night has a voice. And if you listen carefully, they tell you everything you need to know. The first sound is the stove. Tick, tick, tack. That rhythmic metallic settling. the iron expanding and contracting as the fire breathes inside. It's quieter now than it was an hour ago. The oak log burning slow, the flames dying down to a deep smolder. But the ticking continues. A heartbeat in the darkness. A promise that the fire is still alive. Then there's the wind. It's been there all night, but you've stopped noticing it. Now, in the silence, it returns to your awareness. It moves against the cabin in waves. A low moan that rises to a whistle, then fades, then rises again. It sounds almost alive, something prowling around the walls, testing for weakness. You hear it hit the north corner. A dull thud, like a shoulder checking a door. The logs absorb the impact and the sound dies instantly. In a modern house, wind rattles things. Windows vibrate. Siding creaks. You hear the weather inside your walls. But these logs are too massive to rattle. The wind slams against them and goes silent. The cabin doesn't even shudder. Then comes a sound from the forest. Crack. Sharp and sudden, like a rifle shot echoing through the trees. You don't flinch. You know what that is. Out in the deep woods, the sap inside the maples and oaks is freezing. As it freezes, it expands. The pressure builds inside the trunk until the wood fibers can't hold anymore. Then they split. Violently. Explosively. The sound carries for miles on a night this cold and still. Crack. Another one. Further away. It's the sound of trees being torn apart by the cold. The forest fighting a war with the temperature. But then you hear the response from your own house. Groan. It's a low, bass sound, more vibration than noise. You feel it in the floorboards beneath your mattress. The cabin is shifting. The logs contracting as the temperature drops, settling deeper into their notches. But it's not the sound of weakness. It's the sound of the structure locking itself tighter together. The colder it gets, the harder the cabin grips itself. And then there's the silence. Real silence. The kind that doesn't exist in the modern world. No hum of electricity. No distant traffic. No refrigerator cycling on and off. No airplane passing overhead. Just the absence of sound, pressing against your ears like a physical presence. But wait, the silence is changing. It's getting heavier, more muffled, and you realize why. The snow. It's been falling steadily for hours, piling up against the walls, accumulating on the roof, burying the cabin inch by inch. In the modern world, we worry about snow. We shovel it, plow it, salt it, curse it. We see it as a problem to be managed. But the pioneer welcomed the snow. Snow is trapped air, millions of tiny ice crystals with space between them. It's nature's insulation. As the drifts pile against the north wall, they stop the wind from reaching the timber. As the snow blankets the roof, it adds another layer of protection over the loft. Your cabin is being buried. You're becoming an igloo made of wood. With every inch that falls, the sounds from outside grow fainter. The wind becomes a distant whisper. The cracking trees become muffled pops instead of sharp reports. You are disappearing from the world. The sensation is profoundly peaceful. You think about your modern life, the noise, the notifications, the constant intrusion of the outside world into every moment. The way silence has become something you have to buy, something you have to travel to find. But here, silence is free. Silence is everywhere. The world has hushed itself under a blanket of white, and you are hidden beneath it. The dog shifts at your feet. A small sound, the scrape of claws on the quilt, a soft exhale. One of the children murmurs something in their sleep. A fragment of a dream, words that don't quite form, then silence again. Your wife's breathing continues its slow rhythm. In, out, in, out. The most ancient sound in the world. The sound that means someone you love is alive beside you. You match your breath to hers without thinking about it. Your bodies synchronizing the way they have for years. In, out, in, out. The cabin holds you. The snow buries you. The quilts press you down. And finally, the last thread of wakefulness begins to slip away. Your thoughts lose their shape. Images drift through your mind without logic. The barn door latching, the stove light flickering, the dog's tail wagging, your daughter's laugh. They don't connect to anything. They're just fragments, floating past like leaves on a slow river. You let them go. You don't chase them. The warmth is everywhere now. Inside you and outside you. There's no boundary between your body and the bed, between the bed and the cabin, between the cabin and the snow-covered silence. Everything is soft. Everything is still. You sleep. Sometime later, you surface. Not fully awake. Not startled. Just a slow rise toward consciousness, like a bubble floating up through dark water. You don't know what time it is. There's no clock to check. No glowing numbers to tell you how many hours until morning. But your body knows. This is the deep of night. The dead hours between midnight and dawn, when the world is at its coldest and the fire is at its lowest. You lie still for a moment, taking inventory. The quilts are still heavy on your chest. The bodies beside you are still warm. The dog hasn't moved from his spot at your feet. But something has changed. The air on your face feels different. Crisper. The tropical warmth of the loft has cooled by several degrees. And the sound from below, that steady tick, tick, tack of the settling iron, has slowed. The gaps between the ticks are longer now. The fire is dying. In a modern home, this wouldn't matter. The thermostat would sense the drop and kick the furnace back on. You'd sleep through it, never knowing, never caring. But here, the fire doesn't restart itself. If you let it go out completely, morning will be a misery. You'll wake to a cabin barely warmer than the outside air. You'll have to start from scratch, kindling, nursing the flame, waiting an hour before the room is livable again. And so, like your parents before you, and their parents before them, you rise. You push back the quilts slowly, trying not to disturb your wife or the children. The cold air hits your chest immediately, shocking you into full wakefulness. You swing your legs over the edge of the bed. The dog lifts his head, watches you for a moment, then settles back down. He knows this routine. He's seen it 1,000 times. You find your footing on the ladder and begin the descent. With each rung, the temperature drops. The heat lake of the loft gives way to the cooler air of the main room. By the time your feet hit the floorboards, the cold is biting at your ankles. You move quickly across the room, guided by the faint glow of the stove vents. The iron is no longer radiating waves of heat. It's warm, but not hot. The roaring furnace of the evening has become a sleeping ember. You grab the handle. It's cool enough to touch without a cloth now, a warning sign. You open the door. Inside, the coal bed has shrunk. The deep, pulsing layer of red and gold has faded to a thin carpet of grey ash with orange veins running through it. But it's not dead. Not yet. You reach into the wood box and pull out the night log you prepared hours ago. The biggest, densest piece of oak. A log that would choke a fresh fire but will settle perfectly into a mature coal bed. You place it carefully into the belly of the stove, nestling it into the embers. You take the poker and rake the coals up around it, tucking the new wood into the heat like a parent tucking a child into bed. For a moment, nothing happens. Then a thin curl of smoke rises from the bark. A blue flame licks along the edge. The wood has caught. You close the door. The latch clicks. You stand there in the darkness, listening. Whoosh. The draft catches. Air flows through the vents, feeding the newborn flames. The stove begins to tick again, slowly at first, then faster as the iron heats. You've reset the heartbeat of the house. This moment, standing alone in the cold dark while everyone else sleeps, is not a burden. It's a privilege. You are the keeper of the fire, the one who wakes so others can sleep. The link in a chain that stretches back thousands of years to the first human who understood that fire meant survival and that survival meant vigilance. You look toward the window. The frost has grown thick on the glass, spreading in fern-like patterns that catch the faint light from outside. Silver and white, delicate and beautiful. It's a reminder of what you're holding back. The cold is right there, inches away, pressing against the barrier you've built. But the barrier is holding. You turn back to the ladder. The climb up feels easier now, pulled upward by the promise of warmth. You slip back under the quilts. Your spot is still warm. The others' bodies have preserved it for you. The dog shifts, acknowledges your return with a soft thump of his tail, then goes still again. Your wife murmurs something without waking. Her hand finds yours under the covers and holds it. The interruption hasn't broken your sleep. It's deepened it. You've done what needed to be done. The fire will burn until morning now. The cabin will hold. You close your eyes. The stove is ticking faster below, the iron warming, the heat beginning its slow rise back toward the loft. You drift off listening to it. That mechanical heartbeat that means you are safe for another night. Light returns slowly to the wilderness. It doesn't burst in like a summer sunrise. It seeps, a pale, steel-gray glow that filters through the frost-covered window, turning the darkness into something softer. You open your eyes. For a moment, you're disoriented. You're buried so deep under the wool that you can barely see the room. The quilts have become a cave, and you're at the bottom of it. But you're warm, incredibly warm. The night did its work. The bodies around you generated heat. The quilts trapped it. The fire below kept the air from dropping too far. The snow outside insulated the cabin like a second skin. You survived. That might sound dramatic. You were just sleeping, after all. But out here, in this world, sleep is not passive. Sleep is an act of engineering. A victory against an environment that would kill you if you let it. You push the quilts down just enough to peek out. The air in the loft is cool now, crisp. You can see your breath puffing out in small white clouds. But it's not painful, not dangerous, just brisk, the way morning air is supposed to feel before the fire rebuilds. Your wife is already stirring. She doesn't linger in bed the way modern people do, hitting snooze, bargaining for 5 more minutes. There's no time for that. The day has begun whether she's ready or not. She slides out from the quilts, moving quickly, feet finding the ladder without hesitation. You hear her descending, then the creak of the stove door opening, then the clatter of kindling being arranged. Within minutes, you hear it. Whoosh, crackle, pop. The fire is coming back to life. The stove begins to tick as the iron warms. The smell of wood smoke drifts up through the floorboards. The children are waking now, roused by the cold air on their faces, by the sounds of the day beginning. They burrow deeper for a moment, resisting, then give up and start to move. The dog is already gone. He climbed down the ladder while you were still half asleep, drawn by the promise of warmth below and whatever scraps might come his way from breakfast. You're the last one in the loft. You sit up. The cold air hits your shoulders through the flannel nightshirt. You pull the nightcap off. Your hair is pressed flat beneath it, wild and ridiculous, and you swing your legs over the edge of the mattress. The floor is cold. You find your footing quickly, descending the ladder into the main room. The stove is already radiating. Your wife has fed it well. Pine kindling first to get the flames roaring, then a solid piece of oak to sustain it. The iron is warming fast. You cross to the stove and stand there, palms extended toward the heat, feeling it push back against the night's chill. Through the window, you can see what you survived. The world is white. Completely, utterly white. The snow is deeper than it was when you went to bed. Another 6 inches, maybe more, piled on top of everything. The fence posts have become small white pillars. The path to the barn has vanished entirely. And on the inside of the cabin door, you see the evidence. The iron nails that hold the cross bracing, they're spotted with white. Frost. The metal conducted the cold straight through the wood, freezing the moisture in the air on the inside of the door. Those white spots are a message. They say, just inches away, on the other side of that timber, the temperature is still lethal. If you'd been out there, you'd be dead. But you weren't out there. You were in here. You turn away from the door and look around the cabin. Your wife is slicing bread. The children are pulling on clothes, arguing about something trivial. The dog is underfoot, hoping for scraps. The fire is crackling. The room is warming. It's just another morning. Ordinary, unremarkable. But you know what it took. The logs your grandfather felled, dragged, and stacked with his own hands. The chinking you repair every autumn, crawling along the walls with mud and moss. The stove you saved for 2 years to buy, hauled by wagon over roads that barely existed. The quilts your wife stitched through 3 pregnancies, fabric saved from every worn-out piece of clothing the family owned. The wood you spent all of last autumn cutting, splitting, stacking, enough to burn through 5 months of winter. Every piece of this morning was earned. In the modern world, warmth is invisible. You press a button, turn a dial, pay a bill. The heat just appears, sourceless and automatic. You don't think about where it comes from or what it costs. But standing here, watching the frost melt off the window glass, feeling the fire push back the last of the night's cold, you understand something that modern people have forgotten. Warmth is not free. Warmth is not given. Warmth is built. Warmth is maintained. Warmth is the product of 1,000 small decisions made correctly, 100 skills passed down through generations, a lifetime of labor stored in woodpiles and wool. Your ancestors understood this. They lived it every day. They went to sleep not knowing for certain they'd wake up warm, and they woke up grateful that they did. That knowledge is almost gone now. We've engineered it away, hidden it behind thermostats and insulation and furnaces that run without us. But on nights like last night, when the temperature drops to 40 below and the wind screams through the trees and the snow buries the world in silence, on nights like that, the old knowledge still matters. The walls that breathe, the heart of iron, the geography of warmth, the fortress of fabric, the inner furnace, the living insulation. Layer by layer, piece by piece, your ancestors built a system that could keep them alive when the world was trying to kill them. And they did it with nothing but axes, mud, wool, and fire. Tonight, as you lie in your own bed, wherever you are, whatever the temperature outside, you're the product of that survival. Every ancestor who made it through a night like the one we just walked through is the reason you exist. They kept the fire burning. They passed the knowledge down. They held the line against the cold, generation after generation, until the world changed and the knowledge wasn't needed anymore. But it's still in you somewhere. In the part of your brain that relaxes when you hear a fire crackle. In the way heavy blankets make you feel safe. In the deep satisfaction of a warm bed on a cold night. You carry the cabin with you, even now. So tonight, as you drift off to sleep, let the warmth settle around you. Let the weight of the covers press you down. Let the sounds of your own house, whatever they are, become the sounds of safety. The fire is burning. The walls are holding. The night is long, but you are warm. Sleep well. You've earned it.